Welcome to my weekly live stream. My name is Bobby Umar. I am the author of the 1% Brand Brilliance, which is my Substack. And I'm happy to have you all here today. And with me, I have a special guest, Leslie Flowers. And she and I are going to talk about a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts. For those who are joining in, I see Meryl, Hassan, Crystal, more people joining in. As you join in, we encourage you to share thoughts, to share comments, to ask questions. But that's really what today is all about. And what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about, uh, I guess the challenge of AI and technology. And I think for most of us, there's the human edge, the human connection. The those of us who are struggling to keep up, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a parent, whether you're anybody who's is struggling with how it's all working. That's really what it's all about today. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So we thank you for coming by. And I think I'll start by first seeing Leslie. Please, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
I wanted to make sure the audio was coming through. Yes, Bobby?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is my first live on Substack, so I feel, yes, really honored. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, and I was telling Bobby that, and thank you for inviting me, by the way, that it's almost like the universe knew that this needed to happen today because I've never really been in Substack, and you just taught me how to get in and move around. So, well, I am a grandmother and a 30-year student of personal, professional, and leadership development. My area of mastery is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and the Principles of Success and how to apply them in your life. And I've written 14 books. One was fantasy science fiction from a couple of years ago that I'm most proud of. So other than that, I have two shows, one Monday and one Friday live on LinkedIn. And we have a wonderful community there, and I'm looking forward to seeing who's here. So thank you again, Bobby.
Okay, great. And I put in the chat already something. I said, hey, drop in the chat. What's one thing you would never let AI do for you? And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Put that in the chat. So a little bit about myself. My name is Bobby Umar. I am a motivational speaker by trade. For the last 25 years, I've done 1,000 keynotes and workshops across 4 continents. I initially was a soft skill leadership guy. Then I became known for a networking expert. So I wrote a book about that. That was a bestseller. Then I became known as a personal branding expert. So designed a course for that. Then I got into social media and I started building influence on Twitter with 500,000 followers, on LinkedIn with 50,000 plus, and being a 2 time LinkedIn top voice. And also, I had done 5 TEDx talks. So a lot of what I do is about storytelling, speaking, content creation, community building, and things like that. Now, I focus a lot of my energy on building authority and trust for people, whether it's through letting a TEDx talk or speaking, or whether it's being on here on Substack or other platforms where we help business owners get to that next level. So this is hosted on Substack. And I do this every week on Fridays, usually at 4 p.m., sometimes a different time. Um, and just a point of order, next week I am not doing one because I'm going on a vacation with my family to celebrate my wife's 50th birthday. Her birthday's in September, but because my son's going to university in the fall, we decided let's go for a week. And I'm taking her. She's never been to New York. We're taking her to London, England for a week, and we're going to watch musicals and absorb the culture and the buildings, and it's going to be amazing. And I realized that similar to our topic for today, which is the human connection piece, the human edge piece. You know, I need to take a vacation. I need to not have to be on calls. I'm not like I'll check in. Like people can message me and stuff, but
Mhm.
I'm like I made a clear distinction. I'm not going to do any calls. So definitely on vacation. So there won't be any. There's no live stream next week, but we typically do them every Friday. All right. So so with that, I see that already. Husband saying, "I would never let AI become my romantic partner." Oh, okay. I saw the movie Her. That's interesting. Lynn Williams says, "Been in TLB Club 5.5 years. Check it out. The link. Thanks so much." And also, yeah, TLB Club is basically my membership community for business owners to level up their game, to build their brand, to get better at sales, better at funnels, have some accountability, get access to me and the other in-house experts to learn about everything, including AI, including LinkedIn, including funnels and sales and just, having a place to be accountable. And so if you're a business owner that's struggling to level up to either scale your business or you hit a ceiling or looking to save more time, we're the group you want to come join us. So on Substack, tier one is free, tier two is the first level of paid subscribers, and then tier three is basically TLB Club, the monthly access to our group and things like that. Um, so let's get on the topic. Why is this? Why, this is the second time I'm talking about this topic. Really, why AI is a powerful topic, but the thing that I'm focused on is the human connection piece, the human edge piece, because I think that's where people get caught up in it. I mean, I'll tell you something that just happened today on AI that I'm very, very excited about, which was I was able to use my Claude Code setup to access 60 Twitter Space audio rooms, so 60 hours of content that I did from 2022 to 2026, and it's now downloading them and saving them archive, and we'll be able to use those archives, those replays for content or my new podcast, things like that. And that is something I never would have been able to do by myself. And so for me, that's the power of that. Now, that said, so I have this brain doing things, but the thing for me that's important is to always have the heart grounded and surrounding that brain. So for me, the heart is a big part of what I'm doing. So so that's kind of why I like to talk about it. So for those of you who are here, if you have questions, by all means ask. But I'm going to start my first question for Leslie, which is
Mhm.
Leslie, what do you see as the biggest challenge for us humans as we're navigating all this AI technology that just seems to be rampant everywhere? And it's a very, very big meta question, but why not start with meta questions?
Yeah. So, yes, for the metacognitives, we might as well start with a meta connection. And my area is thought mechanics. So, where I've been studying for 20 years is how what you think, how we can use intentional thinking to create the outcomes that we want, as simply as that, as simple as that. So what happens is with AI and all the devices, there is a sensory overload which deeply diminishes our ability to focus and concentrate. The distraction, we can't hold a thought. Our kids can't hold a thought. So I really am concerned about that because to become really good at what you do and to create businesses, you have to be able to focus on one thing at a time. And this happens automatically. This bombardment and this sensory overload is distracting and it doesn't allow us to really think. It's, for example, you've seen the ads probably where, oh, join this program and you can listen for 10 minutes each day to a different book, right? And you'll get the most learning. But that is inaccurate. It takes study, right? Repeated study to actually absorb the information, to get clear and make choices about what you're going to do next. So that's the big one, is the lack of ability to focus and to do things on our own.
And I think that's a really great point, and we see this across the board. So I see it in my kids, with
Yep.
not just social media, but also AI technology. I think that's a big challenge. I see it in my fellow entrepreneurs. They having trouble, in today's world. Um, it's funny. I'll send. I'm Gen X, so I will send long emails, and then I'll even get emails or reply back saying, question, what about this? What about this? I'm like, I answered it in an email. You didn't read the whole thing because people can't even process a long email. These are people of all age ranges, right? So older, younger. And so, yeah, we are living in a time where I think people have a much harder time with that attention span. I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of folks too. In fact, someone asked me the other day
You
about,
you just caught me in this. In fact, we have a perfect example between the two of us of what you just said. So I'm a
okay,
boomer,
yeah,
right? I'm a boomer. So, but I've moved from long emails to short ones, and you sent me a lengthy, well, it's relatively speaking, but several
oh,
paragraphs about what this
sure.
would be. I didn't read it properly. I didn't fully listen, and then when the conversation continued, you said, "But I mentioned this here." And
Right.
so,
Oh,
this was
yeah,
my
right. Right.
right, so you're actually bringing up you caught me red-handed, not really listening to what you were saying, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I think it's the perfect example.
And it happens to all of us. Me too. Like I definitely have been caught as well. It's complete like so it's okay, everyone. It's normal. It's human, but like it is a cause of concern. We are losing our ability to focus and to process everything properly because we are overwhelmed with this stuff.
That's right.
That said, I mean, when it comes to AI, though, I mean, the people here are using AI. I mean, um,
Mhm.
are you using AI or are you not using
I
AI? And if so, how do you, I guess, maintain your sense of being grounded in humanity when you're using it?
Yeah, well, I am a line editor, a gold standard line editor, and that's while I am a teacher and a mentor, the way I make money these days is line editing manuscripts that are ready to go to publishing. And, I don't I'm trying to think the best way to answer that question. Ask me again in another way.
um, well, I mean, I guess the question is, like, let me use an analogy, okay?
Okay.
I used to say that, in the world of AI, I'm someone who's riding a bicycle. They're the
Uh,
experts who are flying these planes and driving these really, really fast cars, and they're going really, really fast. I'm kind of riding a bicycle and not furiously, just kind of, pedaling away, learning this, learning that. There's other people who are walking and they're kind of taking, oh, that's interesting. That's a cool little thing. And there's other people who are just sitting there doing nothing. Majority of people are not using AI. And so what happens is, because I'm riding a bicycle, I'm hundreds of miles ahead. Other people are walking, they're, dozens of miles ahead.
I love that.
But then you have the people who are super duper fast. They're way, way ahead of us. They're already in space. Now,
Right.
what I will say though is that in the last uh, 3 4 months since I switched all my stuff to Claude, and then I
Mm,
elevated to Claude Cowork and Claude Code, and now I actually run a VS Code in a Bobby operating system on my OneDrive. I now have a very sophisticated system of all my files and all my stuff. And so I moved from the bicycle. I am now on a motorcycle. I'm going pretty fast.
got it.
Now that said, that also means I still have to. But then, how do I maintain my humanity? Right. So there's someone in the chat actually just said, I don't let my AI workflow send emails on my behalf. So a good example of that is, I'll have AI craft certain things like a newsletter, a post, an email, a direct message, right? But I need to see it first. It's not automatically gone. Now there's certain things I am letting it do, but there are certain things where I'm not letting it do because I do want to have a quick check. I do want to have a little bit of that humanity in there. And so I think that's where I'm more of an active user, which is true, but I still think in doing so, keeping that humanity is incredibly important to me. So I wanted to ask you, like, what are you using and doing, and how do
I
you
got it.
maintain your humanity? Yeah.
I got it. So as a line editor, I will if I see a use of a word, I know a lot about this. So there are times when I will ask, is this the best use of this word in a professional setting? So I do use it for that, but I won't use it. I will not put someone else's manuscript through AI. I'll put it through Grammarly, perhaps, right? But I will not allow it to write for me. At the same time, I got the idea that it would be so fantastic to just feed AI with everything I know and let it write for me because it knows my style. I haven't gone there yet. I've dabbled in graphics. My concern about people using AI so much is really it's a continued lack of focus and the lack of the ability to work things out for yourself, right? So for me, I still rely, and I can spot an AI manuscript in a heartbeat, right? It's not very bright. The other way I have used it, I love to do this to AI, because I'm a little concerned about feeding it my content, which is ahead of the curve. Right? So I created the 12 laws of achievement, the checklist to consistently achieve your goals, which never existed. So I'm reluctant because whatever we feed in, the whole world can touch, right? So I've been very careful about, but I like to use it to double check to see if it knows as much as me, and it doesn't. So that stops me from feeding it what I know I'm not ready to release it yet. I don't want everybody to grab a hold of these 12 laws unless you've worked with me or you're working with me.
Mhm.
So, I feel that it's rather intrusive in our lives. Um, but I create my humanity in my work to make darn sure that I don't use it on someone else's work. And that when I do use it, I cite that I created this with ChatGPT. So it's more about integrity and values, right? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, great. And look, I
Okay.
think that there's different ways to go about this for most people, but I think I'll give you an example of how I'm doing it very, very authentically, or at least
Mhm,
the human way is. I did this thing where the first thing I did with ChatGPT, or sorry, ChatGPT with Claude, was to
mm,
have it set up my AI chief of staff. What that really means is I asked it to interview me on how I work, my personality styles, the things that make sense. Like essentially, I'm interviewing a personal assistant, or I'm interviewing an intern to work with.
mhm.
And so it learned about all my different things I liked, and disliked. And so knowing that actually was a great way to have this personal assistant that could task me with things to do because I'm ADHD and I can't keep track. And so it gives me great stuff. The second thing I did was a really powerful thing, which was it was from Ruben Hassid. And basically, I did this thing where it asked me 100 questions about me, my beliefs, my values, how I like to talk, how I like to receive information. Uh, I started talking about everything. I talked about my wife, my kids, my parents, things I care about, my politics, my social justice stuff, and this was like 100 questions, a very deep conversation over like 4 or 5 hours. And after it did that, it then wrote this document called the Bobby Brand Voice. And I looked at it, I reviewed it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now it wasn't perfect, but it got so much. And then over the past 2, 3 months, I've been honing it and honing it. Like just today, I had a slight hone, which was which was a very simple thing that I didn't catch before, which is, hey, when you write content for me, I speak in contractions. I say, we're having dinner. You're going over there. I don't say I cannot and I will not and I have not. I don't talk like that. Contractions. And like, okay, contractions. Got it. And so, like those are small nuances here and there that it's learning about me. And so now I've really honed it to 95, 96, 98% of, what my brand voice is. Um, I want to go to a question again. We're talking about the human connection, the human edge and AI.
Yes.
Neil says, "What do you think about Substack checking for AI generated content now?" That's a very relevant topic because just today on LinkedIn, I did a post where now on LinkedIn posts you can click on a link, and there used to be this thing where you say, "I don't like this," or "You can report this," or "I'm not interested in this." Now you can say, "This looks like AI slop to me." And my take on that actually was not a fan. Not a fan. We're weaponizing the ability of people to just the mob, the mass users, 1 billion of them on LinkedIn, to say whatever they want about anyone's post, whether it's true or not. And I think that, and without any transparency or guidelines, I think that's a bit dangerous. Um,
Mhm,
that said, I understand the desire to rid of slop, and so similarly, Substack had this launched this thing called where you can check content to see if it's AI generated or not. Now, what's interesting about that? My first instinct is like, look, it's always good to know. Um, why do you want to know? And the reason I say that is I remember and I'm going to use a musical theater reference. I did a show and I played the Pirate King in Pirates of Penzance. Now I played the Pirate King twice before this in two different shows. And then I was with this director, and he was he was really big on original content. And so I did this joke. I was on stage. I was doing this big joke, and he's like, "Have you done that before?" because he was nervous that I'm regurgitating a joke from 5, 10 years ago. I said, "Look, do you like it?" He's like, "I love it. I think it's hilarious." Great. So what's the problem? Why can't I perform with this joke? Because again, he was worried about something 5 years ago on a show that no one's going to remember, and this is a funny joke. Let's just do it. And I'm repurposing this, right? And so similarly, when it comes to this, like if you see a post and you love it, does it matter that you know it's AI or not? I mean, maybe you should from a critical thinking standpoint. But the other thing I'll say is that you should test this, test it out, because one of the things that happened too is that testing. And Meryl's like, "Hey, Leslie's a performer too, a singer and a performer model." Thing. Okay, thanks, Meryl. That's good to know. Um, test it out, because one of the things I did too when I built my Bobby brand voice was I tested. I said, "Here's two articles that I wrote by myself. Here's two articles that my Bobby brand voice AI wrote for me. Tell me the difference. Can you?" And it got to a point where no one could tell the difference. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I feel pretty comfortable with this. I'm still going to check it. I'm still going to look for little things like the contractions thing today.
Mhm.
So going back to the Substack thing, Richard Vanderbilt on LinkedIn said that he actually tested 10 different pieces on Substack, and the Substack model got it wrong 6 out of 10 times. So,
Yeah.
models aren't perfect. I think it's a good thing to have, and I think it gives certain people comfort. Hey, Brandon Miller from Metro Detroit, good to see you. I've actually been to her house. Fun fact, in Detroit, and yeah, so I think people do like having the AI testers are good. It reminds me of social media where people were looking for fake followers. You could just tell if someone's account had fake
Right,
followers.
right.
That was actually a good thing to have. I kind of like that. So I think it's a good tool to have, guys. I just don't think that you should put your entire, livelihood and focus on that. Like, go live your life and focus on the people that matter. Focus on going back to the human thing. Focus on your clients. Focus on your family. Focus on the people that matter in your life versus worrying about every single thing. Oh my God, this AI, this AI. Unless, of course, like if my dad's getting tricked by something, or my mom's getting tricked by something, or something like that. So anyway,
Well,
uh,
aren't we all being tricked
yes.
every day? And, we maybe this is a good time to bring up, um, the, uh, the agreement, the consistent agreement. What did I call it? I sent you a note, interim agreement, and what's actually happening when people get on board with things, whether it's true or not. And that is a interim agreement is really, even if you gather people, and this is what people do, to agree with your point of view, it doesn't mean it's true. It's a level of interim agreement with you. And I think that that has a lot to do with people's basic fears, the things they're concerned about. And one of them is judgment and criticism. So that if I align with this group, right? I'm part of something, I'm belonging, I'm aligned with them. There's safety in numbers, but that's one of the lowest levels of conscious awareness that there is. And so interim agreement is tricky because that's what's going on with politics. We don't know really what to believe. The people that are focused on one point of view, they fill themselves up with that point of view. You'll notice that people who are left or right or whatever opinion they have, that they will not consider another opinion, of which so many people are like this, then what's happening is through repetition, which is how we learn, and the consistent default of negative information literally embeds into our subconscious without our realizing it. So we can do it on purpose, right? And like having these conversations, or it happens by default. But what happens there in the subconscious is now it becomes reactive. So, whatever that opinion is, when something comes up, instantly you're going to react. You're not really thinking at all because you've made yourself sick, if you will, with information that is not pleasant, grateful, or heart centered. It has a very low cellular vibration because mind is an activity. It's not an organ, and what you're thinking all the time, it has an effect on how you're feeling, and a low frequency or vibration is not how we're built. It makes us feel bad. So without even realizing it, we, really are preventing ourselves by allowing ourselves to listen to all the negative and only on one station or another, we've actually brainwashed ourselves, right? And without realizing it's the same concept. Brainwashing is the repetition of thought so many times that it becomes part of you, if you will. Once it becomes part of you, it affects your body, your nervous system, and your brain. And that's why we have neural pathways that have us react to negativity quickly. I'm not doing that, right? Without even thinking, is it a good idea? So we're teaching ourselves to pause in this work, and you need to be able to focus and concentrate on this ability. So that's what I wanted to share with
A
you.
and I think you've drawn on a really important point, which is I think a lot of us are struggling to navigate how AI or even technology or social media algorithms can push stuff on you, and we are not able. We're hounded by this stuff over and over again. If someone tells me 10 times that there's a wolf coming, I might start to believe there's a wolf. Or if I search something that I'm questioning, and the algorithm feeds me stuff about, hey, well, it's in a certain way, it gets very dangerous. We have to find a way to distinguish. I've always been, I find that really fascinating too, particularly because you do see it from a political standpoint where people are just so entrenched in their ideas, and it's like,
Mhm.
how do we get past that? How do we get for anybody? How do we get past it? It's very, very difficult. And so I think that, yes, I think that's a very big concern with AI that we need to definitely navigate. Now, going back to the topic, which is, uh, AI and humanity, like let's talk about that for a second. So, give me an example of something where AI has actually helped me. I'm not a techie per se. Okay. But now that I have my entire kind of second Bobby brain set up on my laptop with Cloud Code, and I was struggling with dealing with some website server stuff, right? And it gave me step by step process on how to go through my DNS servers and how to connect it to the website, do it all properly. And for ages, I would like not do it by myself, but because it was showing me exactly step by step what to do, I would share screenshots. I did it. I just got it done. So before, I would never touch a DNS server for the fear of wrecking it, but I just did. And so what's interesting is that the AI helped draft the step by step process, which was helpful to me. But the human in me, I did the work, right? I was sending information, I was connecting all that stuff. And so, what's interesting to me is that, and I'll ask you this, Leslie, where do you draw the line between delegating to a tool and doing it yourself?
Yeah, because, the lazy part of me wants to use the tool.
Right,
Right.
right.
Right. I mean, and that's a reality and you point out something else really important. You say it's hard. The thing about becoming aware and observing what's going on for yourself, and then being able to take an action step to change or create a new behavior that is more aligned with being heart-centered and directed at humanity. So if, it has to be done when you're ready, because you said it's hard. How do we get people to do that? When they're ready. That's the problem. We cannot convince or influence anyone else to do so. We can influence, but that happens with sales. Right?
Right.
With, for example, when you go to a big event, a personal or professional development event, right? You must go with an intention or a goal. Otherwise, what happens is you get carried away with the frequency, the excitement. People are creating visions for you of what your life could be, and they're wonderful storytellers, and they're great salespeople and you are sold. and influenced, and you buy, and then you get home and you don't know what to do with anything, right? So when you start to observe these things happening, then you can take an action, right? That creates a new habit. The important thing is one at a time. And what I've discovered is that the greatest inventions, creations that mankind has created for mankind began without knowing how. And so very few people are willing to stick their neck out when they don't know how. And that's why AI is so helpful because you can go in there. But before that, it was YouTube. And don't you remember when we had GPS, when the GPS first started? It was wrong so many times. I would end up out in the middle of nowhere because I trusted it. The way you're saying, you got to know it enough to where AI is at a place where you trust pretty well that it's doing a good job, right? As an executive assistant, or as a former executive assistant, I find that AI is not a very good assistant, right? It's not as good as I was. So the thing is that we must get back to focus to be able to concentrate and it's on one thing. But we have this sensory overload. There's so many wonderful things to do. Oh my goodness, I can do this and I could do this and I could do this and nothing gets done. So the lack of focus that's created also stops us from making the change in our own mind. Why should we? It's easier to let AI do it for us. So it takes a certain kind of person, right?
Yeah,
A certain
yeah. It's interesting that you talked about the trust of tech, right? So I'll give you another example
Mhm.
of trusting tech. I drive. I've been driving for 40 years almost, and but now you know my rear view camera, I trust it. I'm not like doing this like I used to, right? I'm never doing that. I'm looking at the camera
Really?
and I'm slowly going back because I have learned time and time again after probably like 5, 10 years of doing this that it's actually a really good camera. It's quite accurate. I do like it.
Yeah.
And having
Yes.
it and now I trust it. And so for the most
Right.
part, that's something I've learned to trust. And there is technology now, like, for example, Alexa is there, and we talked, and initially you're like you don't want to talk about certain things, but now like I'm asking it questions and I'm trusting it. That is so the trust builds after a series of repetitive successes that you start to feel
Mhm.
more comfortable with, right? And that's the same thing with any sort of thing. Anytime the more I um like, let's say Leslie and I have 10 conversations and we have three great conversations, the fourth one just sucks. It's like, oh man, I don't like what Leslie had to say. It's gonna take another 5, 10 conversations before I'm like, "Okay, let me how do we get back to that trust again?" Same with technology. The first time somebody used an ATM machine and, "Oh, where's my $20? It's gone," and
Right,
the
right, right.
trust, erodes. I've never had any issues with my back
But that
camera.
trust
Right?
is growing as the technology is improving and
Sure.
evolving. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing it, it's really happening concurrently, isn't it?
Yeah, so, like, for me with AI, like, now, like, I I particularly trust it to find all my stuff that's publicly out there. So I've basically gotten it to go find all my YouTube videos that are public, all my podcasts that are public, every single audio that I've ever done. It is now bringing in thousands and thousands of hours of data, and it is blowing my mind what it's been able to do. So
That's overwhelming. What are you gonna do with all that?
well, no, so I got it to sort through what information is relevant to me and my business. And so one of the things it said was, "Hey, Bob, you have a lot of audio content and video content. We could probably start a podcast and just share stuff." And so I said, "Okay." And so I designed the graphic. It gave me step-by-step instructions on how to set it up. And I launched my podcast called The Power of Connection. And now 3 episodes are out and downloads are happening. And it's
Was
just take
this was Claude? Was this Claude that did
Claude,
that for you?
Claude helped me. Well, it took all the audio stuff I had and said, "Hey, here are some of the best episodes you can start off with." It gave me 3 episodes to start with. It created an image. I then posted it, shared it, and I basically set up the podcast. And now next week, I'll upload 3 more, audio things it's got in the database. So being able to access all that
Well,
information from my life that's publicly out there versus what you were saying, which is I don't want to give stuff out. Like, so for example, all my text mastery stuff, that's just within my program. I don't really I don't post publicly all the information that I have publicly.
yes.
So, but that's been fantastic for me. And again, going back to the human thing, I'm taking all of the existing real things that I'm doing and that I've said out there versus manufactured stuff. And I'm just repeating, repurposing, regurgitating that in a way that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
So,
I love it.
yeah. And I want to hear, I see like Christopher's here and Scott's here and Louis is here. If you guys have any questions about what we're talking about, you're more than welcome to do that. We're talking about the human connection and AI. Let me go to another question
Okay.
for you. So, um, you know, where do you? Here's an example. I guess I already asked you this question about the delegation piece, but like, let's talk about let's talk about the challenges. And like, I know that you're passionate about education and
Mhm.
younger people, things like that. So we've talked about this. So I think I want to have a little bit of what we're talking about here. Um, you know, where do you see some of the biggest issues, challenge when it comes to, I guess, younger people in their education system, whether it's elementary school, high school, or university, when it comes to particularly AI technology?
It's interesting. I have 4 kids, 4 grandkids that 3 are entering, well, 2 are entering college, 1 is in the senior year, and 1 has finished technical school. Now, my concern is that they won't be able to figure things out on their own without AI. I wonder if they're as smart as we were. I was thinking back to when I was in high school, um, we weren't allowed to have a calculator. We actually had to learn how to use the calculator, right? And excuse me, how to calculate before we got the calculator. We wrote in cursive. You've got people now, young people who can't read cursive. And I don't know what to do to get them to be smarter. Now, look, YouTube, for example, is not unlike what you were talking about getting the steps to start a podcast through AI. YouTube gives you all the answers step by step too. That I guess that's part of the evolution. So my concern is that they're not really thinking for themselves. They're not get creating. Now, but I wanna ask you a question
Sure.
about that big download that you created. What was the purpose? Was the purpose to gather information to start a podcast? Why did you do that to begin with? I wanna know what prompted you to what was the goal when you
Well,
began to do
sure.
this?
Yeah. So the initial thing happened was I was organizing my files. So I have all my videos from my life. I have all my PowerPoints and decks and blogs that I've written. And so we were creating a database of knowledge of everything that Bobby has. A part of Bobby's brand voice, but also Bobby's expert voice in certain areas. This was in something I was creating. But then I realized, like there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't have access to. I'd love to. And then the first time that I realized what the power of what AI could do for me was I do sales calls and I Fathom transcripts. And so what Claude Code did for me was it went through 80 of my sales calls and all the transcripts, and it analyzed the gaps and the opportunities that I could use to be a better salesperson on the calls. And I was like,
Right.
this is phenomenal. It went through
Yeah.
80 calls just like that. And so that's when I say, hey, can you access my YouTube? And then we figured out a way to access it. And it went through 1,800 videos that I had in the last 15 years, and it downloaded every single one of them and found a transcript for each one of them. And from that, my entire database of knowledge of who I was and what I said, what I've shared over my lifetime. And once that started happening, I was like, where's all my other stuff? Okay, find my podcast that I've been a guest. I've been on a guest over 300 podcasts. Find them. Then I realized I had audio rooms on Clubhouse. Find them. Audio rooms on Twitter Spaces. Find them. Just today, I downloaded um, a 69 gigabyte database file of everything I did on Twitter for the last 17 years. So 300,000 tweets, the audio rooms, everything I've ever said, and it analyzed everything I've done in terms of what makes a good Twitter strategy, what was working, and also what does Bobby believe? What does he think about? So, yeah, I'm now on a hunt to gather every single thing that's out there that I've shared. And it's just great to dump. And what it does, we dump it, it analyze it for me, and we trash the rest. We only keep what's important as part of the database. So that to me is phenomenal because now I have all my knowledge from Twitter, which can be for a Twitter strategy. I have all my knowledge from my blog post, which could be for a blog post strategy. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I did it. And yes, Meryl says link to master audio. Yeah, so I downloaded Meryl. I could only find 60 of them that I downloaded the audio replay, but I have them now as a database. And part of it, if I'm talking for more than 10 minutes about any topic, that's a podcast episode.
See, that's
So,
where my mind goes to the place of you because of the work that I do,
yeah,
is that I would take those blog posts and have them create a book and publish a book with all
yeah,
of it,
yeah,
I mean, that's absolutely easy to do now,
yeah,
and that's one of the things in the industry, it's really hurt. In my industry, it's hurt certain things. So, for example, I do audiobooks for people. I have a voice. It's a little raspy today. And, now I think it is Amazon offers people free audiobooks, right? So it's done through AI. So people that are in that business could find themselves with less work,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for
And
sure.
and so it AI is affecting on the humanity side. It's forcing people to be curious about what their other strengths are and to look in different directions, if you're that kind of person. But then there are those who give up, those who buckle under their fear of, I criticism and judgment. I'm not smart enough. I'm not the expert. Why should it be me? And so that's where you've already accepted negative about yourself so many times and remembered it so many times, it's part of your identity. And so again, you want to be curious about why things are happening for you the way they are. AI actually, I don't, it concerns me that jobs are disappearing for people, and what are we going to do next? I know what I would do, but I'm talking about humanity. What is humanity going to do? I don't know if you've heard of this in India. There's a whole group of people that are working with AI, and every day, all day, they're looking at pornography. Right? They're filtering for a company and and making judgments. That repetition corrupts your thinking. It corrupts your vibrations. So what are we gonna do for humanity while we're enjoying the hell out of AI and all the fabulous things it can do and all the fun and the play and the wonderful things that you're doing? But what about people? What are they gonna do? The people who did those jobs? I know that's a simple question, but
I,
what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I want to go back to the calculator in the classroom
Yeah, yeah,
because I'll give you an example. When I was at college, we used to have um, open book exams or a crib sheet exam or
yeah, yeah,
no book exam, nothing. And what I learned was that I preferred either a crib sheet or a no book exam because the open book exams were super hard
yeah.
because you had to ask everything. And so
Right.
similar to what happened is the way they teach calculus or math or economics in high school and college now is that everyone has a calculator. And so therefore the material is actually harder. So having these tools has allowed us to actually educate ourselves at a more advanced rate and do a higher level stuff than what we could do 30 years ago in the classroom. So I think there's a benefit there. Now
Yeah,
the problem so that's one thing that's happening. But then I think the other challenge is to what you said, and I maybe straight from the question here. But going back to the kids, the part that's difficult is that Oh, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. So my wife, she's a writer, copywriter, editor, that's her main thing. And she was really
Mhm.
worried about AI taking her job. I said, "You know what? I found something really interesting, which was a lot of my clients, right? They are writing content, they are writing applications for TEDx talks, they are writing business plans, right? And what's interesting is that uh, when they write it, I can tell it's AI, but what
Right,
they can't tell is they can't tell how good or bad it is. Because the general thing is garbage in equals garbage out. And so if they're not
right,
good at discerning good written material,
right,
they think this is better than what I could have come up with, but they still don't
right,
know
right,
but they don't know how bad it is. So I told my wife, I said, look, you're an expert reader and communicator and writer, which means that you can discern what's really, really good, and these other people cannot. So even
right,
though there is AI out there, you still have a job because you're going to be able to discern that because most people cannot. And secondly, it's in your best interest to get good at learning how to program the AI in your manner so that you're now riding on a bicycle and you can do even more things at greater scale, but with using your expertise. So I think that's still something that's relevant. Now, the difference though with kids is that, you and I at our age, as we went into the internet age, and what happened was internet age, we're like, wow, this is amazing. This huge opportunity. I wish there was more regulation, but okay, let's see what we can learn as we do it. And then
right,
social media came. Wow, this is really interesting. It's kind of overwhelming. It's kind of it's an amazing way to scale our life and our business, our message. But I wish there was more regulation. But oh well, we'll do what we can. Now AI
right,
is now AI is the third wave. This is amazing what it could do. I wish there's more regulation. We have to make sure we manage it. Now, but those of us who have not been sucked into those algorithms, those narratives, those one-sided
mhm,
thinking, which
mhm.
unfortunately is affecting a large proportion of the public,
Yes,
but,
yes,
we some of us are still able to use this and to think strategically, think for ourselves and put proper thought into it and the brain's helping me do it, but also I'm maintaining the heart and I'm maintaining my sense of self and my soul as I do it. But with kids, I think that when they're younger, yes, I don't think that they're doing it or learning it properly. So a perfect example, my kids are at French school, so they go to Francophone school. And one of the things they do is they're using AI called DeepL to translate stuff. I said, if you're writing everything with the translator, how are you learning to write French as well as you could? And and they're looking at me like and dumbfounded. I say, like I said, I discourage them from using it. Like it's okay. I think it's okay to use AI, but use it to help you sort information, to check your
right,
grammar,
right,
but
right,
not
right.
create original content. And then I saw recently my daughter, she writes very lovely personal handwritten notes for her friends on their birthdays. I
Oh,
saw her ask a Claude or ChatGPT to write a note for one of her friends. I was like, honey, don't do that. Do it yourself. Do it yourself. I'm like, unless you've actually inputted all your stuff. And because, yeah, I think that when they're younger, their brain's still forming. And so I think, yes, I do believe this is going to be a problem later on because um, not just with the attention spans, the sleep, the cyberbullying, those are all bad things too. But this ability to think critically and to go through this stuff on your own, I think is going to be very, very hard for them. Like I'd rather teach them how to like, when I teach my son how to drive, I'm gonna teach him how to look back. I'll teach him how to use the camera properly. When I teach him how to
right,
use a
right,
calculator,
right.
here's how to use a calculator. I wanna teach him how to use AI properly because if I don't, then they're gonna be using it in the wrong way, and it's going to impact their learning, their education, as well as what they're gonna be like in their jobs in the future. Because then they're gonna be those people who cannot discern that the output is wrong or biased or
Right.
incorrect or missing stuff or has some things that you can't correct versus just taking it as is, because that's what we don't want. I think
Yes, yes.
I went off a long tangent here, but I'm sure I answered your
No,
question.
no, it's okay. This is our first conversation, so let me just break this up a little bit to tell you that I went to San Francisco State. At that time, it was the number 2 in the country for drama. Renee Aubergenois was one of my teachers,
Wow.
Odo, right, the shapeshifter, and between my junior and senior year, I was accepted into UCLA at a special program and performed for Burt Lancaster. And so my background is musical comedy, and on one of my shows, I always open with a song. So you and I have a lot in common. back to AI and humanity, okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine, and, I think that I wanted to kinda end off our conversation on the heart and the connection piece, which I think is really important. So, like I said, for me, I made it really clear that I wanted, number 1, AI had to understand who I was, what I was doing with my business,
Right.
my personal life, how I operate, my personality styles, my ADHD, my ENFP, Myers-Briggs, all these different things about how I work. Then I answered 100 questions to know my brand voice. And then I tested it to see how good it was. And those are 3 things I did before I did anything else, because you wanna build a foundation that's based on who you are with your work, with your words, with your heart, with your values. And that's a very similar thing I talk about when it comes to personal branding. If you create a personal branded, heart-based, connected human, voice around who you are when you're building that brain, that's gonna save you a lot of time and energy, and you maintain that human connection. So I think that's an important thing I think everyone needs to understand. And at the same time, even when you create stuff, always be questioning, always asking questions. What about this? What about this? So again, today I corrected my post on lack of contractions because I'm like I talk on contractions. So if you start with that basic thing, and thank you, Scott. Scott's like, this is gold money, golden, great. Start with that, and then you can start to build and hone it and test it out. But
That's
don't
one thing. See, that's one thing at a time, and you pointed that out. You started with one thing, and that I can't say how important and how that is missing in in society. Continue, I apologize for
Well, because
interrupting,
everybody
but
wants to jump everyone wants to jump to it, jump, squirrel, 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 jump, jump, like, I
that's right.
understand it, but
Yeah.
again, build the foundation. So if you build the foundation of your brand, your heart, your values, your humanity, then it's gonna be way, way better as you start doing that, expand and put the things out there. I think that's my primary message of creating connection heart. When you think about that, Leslie, what will be your message for everybody in terms of maintaining connection, heart, and humanity in their path forward with AI? Because AI is here to stay, guys. It's here to stay. It's going to be huge prevalent. It's going to be the calculator. It's going to be the rear view camera. It's going to be this. So we have to learn how to figure this out. So what would be your final takes on this?
Well, I guess I have concerns. My final take is that in my world and my brand, if you will, and the way I land and have worked with who I am and how I land for people is to always look for the good, always look for the lesson. The less time that I spend in the what didn't work, in the frustration. We are problem solvers by our nature anyway. We will look for the solution. So for me, the biggest gift that I could give the people that I work with is the ability to immediately step away from that reactive, automatic, not thinking, and pause a moment, which you've heard that word. And what it does is it leads you to be a metacognitive. The more views that you can have and articulate, the stronger they get. These views are like muscles that grow in direct proportion to their use, and they outweigh eventually this business of creating perspectives and then being able to it's really context competence. It's for example, you can present to a group of doctors or you can present to a group of plumbers. Your content doesn't change. All that changes is how it lands, how you massage the examples to speak into their listening. And so this is really the most powerful awareness that you can have. So I think it's important to do what you said, to pick one thing, but always look for the good in people. It's always there. You'll find, and the size doesn't matter. So if someone does something bad, right, we tend to wanna evaluate the size of it. It doesn't matter what good thing you find, the important thing is to teach yourself when you catch yourself thinking negative about someone as example, find the good thing in them, and you'll find it. Then what happens is you get really good at this, and your default is looking for the good in people. That's heart-centered. The other thing I do, on my Monday and Friday calls, but particularly on Monday, is I spend the first 15 minutes acknowledging the people in the room because I live by myself. And since COVID, we've all kind of, been on our own a whole lot more. And we never know if people are heard or seen. So a big part of what I do to stay heart centered is to let people know that I see them and I hear them and who they are for me. And because I've already identified everything good about them, then I articulate that in the room for everyone to get a sense of who I am. So that's the last thing I would say is look for the good in people. You won't be disappointed.
I love that. And, as somebody
Thank you.
who is a heart-centered person myself,
Yes,
I believe in the power of love, compassion, and kindness, and
me
empathy, things
too.
like that. Empathy is a really powerful tool, even when I'm dealing with trolls, because I always ask three questions. Um, you know, can I understand what this person is feeling? Number one. Number two, can I understand why they are feeling this way? Question number three, is there a way for me to support how they're feeling? And I look at those three questions, and it works in every single situation of conflict, of
Yeah.
understanding, of humanity, even
Mhm.
trolls, because it's less likely to make me want to react in a very negative way. I think that's incredibly important. The other message I have to finally think about this, I used the analogy before about how some of us are sitting, walking, riding a bike, motorcycle, car on the world of
Mhm.
AI. The message I have for you is that whether you are sitting or whether you're walking or riding a bicycle or driving a car, at a certain moment, you should stop and get off the road and go into the library or the school or the college or the whatever it might be and educate yourself on this path and learning about AI, learning about technology, learning about social media. Uh, it's a very, very important, powerful thing you can have, and this is a good. You can pass this on to your children. You can pass this on to your colleagues, your family, your friends, your classmates. I think that to me is incredibly important, and I think because you going in mindlessly without educating yourself, I think is dangerous because you know. Uh, I don't really believe that the tech bro billionaires and the people who run companies, even Anthropic, even though I know they need some choices. Look, at the end of the day, they care about money and investors, and they don't care about our kids. They don't care about us as much as we
Right.
communities and people have to care about each other. So educate yourself. And on that note, this is brought to you by the TLB Club, which is the tier three of Substack. We do this every week on Fridays at 4 p.m. Usually. Next week I'm on vacation, so I'm taking a week break. But I'm looking for big speakers with me to join me, whether it's one person, two or three people, to talk about issues that affect small business owners and entrepreneurs, because that's what Substack's really focused on. Whether it's
Mm.
leadership, AI, technology, sales, personal branding, whatever you want. I'm happy to talk about it. But I invite you to come to DLB Club. So we have weekly calls. We have a weekly coaching call. We have a weekly Claude co-working session where I take people on whether you're riding a bike or walking. I show you how to start walking faster, how to ride a bike more steadily, and I'm there to educate people. So if you want to come by any one of our calls as my guest, you can see what TLB Club is all about. And if you want to eventually join, you can certainly join the club and meet the other people there. But I encourage you all to check it out and just DM me, and I'm happy to share with you. So Leslie, how can people follow you, support you? Tell us a bit about what we can do to support you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, having me here and bringing me into Substack when I've been toying with it for some time, I don't jump too quickly, right? Well, I have 2 shows, one at 11 a.m. Monday Eastern and Friday. Monday is Mind Over Matter Mondays, where I bring in guest teachers. I have learned that if we teach these concepts of thinking and mind, and how to think at a basic level and different teachers come in, then this repetition and this absorbing of these concepts happens much more quickly, the light bulb moments. That's at 11 a.m. each week. And then Friday, I delve into Think and Grow Rich, Carnegie's Principles of Success, and the number two bestseller of all time in personal development over the last 100 years. Powerful concepts that I've been studying for 20 years. I'm on LinkedIn primarily, and so you can attend those live events as you will and connect with me. I would love to get to know everyone here. So thank you
I love
again.
that. That was great. Okay, so guys, this video will be available on Substack. It's also going to automatically upload it to my YouTube channel. It's amazing. After this call ends, unless you just when this call ends, it's going to just shut off and we're both gone. So I will say goodbye to you now, because when it shuts off,
Okay.
it's gonna be gone. So make sure you have a lovely weekend,
Okay.
and next week. But
You too.
what also happens is Substack will give you these clips, and I automatically upload with the press of one button. All these clips and shorts go on to YouTube. It's amazing. I love it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing live streams on Substack versus the other platforms, because they're not as good at creating shareable content the way Substack is, which is pretty awesome. So, but I will
Yeah,
give
yeah.
you access to the files too if you want them, and you can use them however you want.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, yeah. So thanks to Meryl and Brenda and Scott and everybody else who joined us here. That's been really, really great. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'm leaving in 2 days to fly across the skies to England, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with this. I'll still be on Substack with the odd little posts here and there, but for the most part, I will not be. I'm on vacation. So, with that, guys, and you will get an auto email, which I mean, is that AI? I don't know. It's just an auto email on Gmail that says I'm away. So, thank you, Leslie. Thanks, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. So long, everybody.
Bye, everybody.